Welcome to the edge of the woods. You've arrived at Midnight Whispers, a place where every story hides in the shadows. Every tree could be watching, and every whisper in the dark might just be something or someone trying to tell you they're still here. Before we begin, I want to ask you something simple. Have you ever felt truly alone in nature? I mean, really alone. Far from the city lights, far from traffic. No signal on your phone, just the sound of leaves rustling above your tent. The soft crunch of footsteps that you hope are just animals. The snap of a twig, maybe behind you, maybe beside you. Or worse, right outside your tent door. That feeling, right there, the moment your gut tightens and your breath catches. That is what we explore here at Midnight Whispers. You're not just here to watch a video. You're here to enter the world of real horror. Not jump scares, not cheap fiction, but documented, lived, terrifying truth. Stories shared by real people. Campers, hikers, families, students, survivors. And tonight, I'm going to take you there. But first, if you're new to this channel, or if you've somehow found your way here on a sleepless night, welcome. You are not alone. There are tens of thousands of us drawn together by the same thing, that strange hunger to feel fear in its most honest form. Here, we tell real horror stories, true events, documented encounters, paranormal incidents, missing persons cases, creepy events caught on tape, and sometimes stories that still don't have an explanation. If that kind of content speaks to something inside you, a curiosity, a chill, a sense that there's more to this world than we understand, then I invite you to join our community. Subscribe to the channel. Tap the bell so you don't miss when new stories go live, because they always come at night. And give this video a like. It helps more people discover the kind of darkness we explore here. Now, before we enter tonight's tales, I want to ask you something else. Have you ever camped alone or with friends deep in the wilderness? No street lights, no neighbors, no lock on the door, just you, some canvas, and the great unknown. It seems peaceful at first, right? Maybe even romantic. The smell of pine, the crackling fire, the soft glow of stars. But nature has two sides. And in the places where GPS doesn't reach and the roads turn to dirt, things begin to shift. That's what many of the people whose stories you'll hear tonight learned the hard way. In the silence of nature, you start hearing things you wouldn't in the city. You notice small movements. You question the sound of the wind. You begin to ask yourself if that's just an animal out there or something else. And sometimes you don't get the answer until it's too late. That's the kind of fear we're deported. Story 1. They were watching us, us all night. Jake and Eric decided to go camping in a remote forest area in Oregon to get away from the stress of city life. They were both nature lovers and had been camping together since their college years. The spot they chose was a 2-hour drive from the nearest town. There was no phone signal. It was quiet and isolated, just as they wanted. During the day, they set up the campsite, gathered wood, built a fire, and cooked marshmallows. When it got dark, only the flickering light of the campfire illuminated the surroundings. As they chatted, a faint crunching sound came from the woods. Jake said it was a squirrel, or a deer? Eric wasn't so sure, but he didn't pursue the matter further. They decided to go to sleep around 11 at night. They went into their tent, wrapped themselves in their sleeping bags, and disappeared into the night. But around midnight, Jake was awakened by a noise. Slow, determined footsteps coming from just outside the tent. As if someone or something was moving lently around the campsite. His heartbeat quickened. He called out for Eric, but there was no answer. Jake took his hand out of the sleeping bag and nudged Eric. "Someone's out there," he said in a whisper. Eric woke up and listened. There were indeed footsteps on the dry leaves. They waited silently inside. They did not speak. They just listened. Minutes passed. The footsteps slowed down, then started again. It seemed to go in a full circle around the tent. Jake remembered he was carrying a knife, but his pack was outside the tent by the fire. At that moment, a tent rope in the shade stretched slightly, as if someone had touched it. Then suddenly, everything stopped. The footsteps stopped. The forest was silent again. In the morning, when they came out, they noticed strange things in the campsite. Footprints around the tent, as if more than one person had walked around. But they hadn't met anyone else in the whole camp. The strangest thing was a small stone left right next to the fire. It had a shape carved into it, an eye, and carved underneath were 3 words: "We see you." Jake and Eric packed up the camp and left that morning without saying anything. They didn't call the police or tell anyone else. But after that night, they never camped in the woods again. The screams came from the woods. In late summer 2021, the Walker family, Anne, Mark, and their 2 children, Ellie, 9, and Jonah, or 12, living in Northern California, decided to camp in the Mill Creek area for a weekend in nature. It was a generally quiet and family-friendly area. There were hiking trails, a small stream, and a peaceful setting surrounded by pine trees. On the first day, everything was normal. The children played hide and seek in the woods. Mom and Dad drank coffee by the fire. After sunset, they all went into their tents together. Around 2:45 a.m., Anne was awakened by a distant sound, accompanied by a light wind. At first, she thought it was an animal, but as she listened, she realized it was a human voice, a woman screaming. But this scream was not normal. Echoing through the dark forest, it sounded like a cry for help. Hoarse, desperate, and repetitive. "Please, help!" Anne immediately woke Mark up. The 2 of them went out quietly. It was pitch black. They shone their flashlights into the trees, but could see nothing. Only echoes lost in the pines. And then silence. Mark wanted to go in the direction of the screams, but Anne wouldn't let him. They didn't know what to do. Their children were sleeping in the tent. They couldn't risk it. Neither of them could sleep until morning. Every now and then, they heard the same voice again, each time a little closer, but never clearer. "Help me!" At daybreak, Mark immediately walked around the area. About 80 meters from the campsite, he found something strange. On the forest floor, a circle was formed by pine branches. In the center of the circle was an old hairpin and a torn shirt. There were no footprints. It was as if someone or something had come and gone without a trace. They reported the incident to the camp staff. They were surprised, but nothing similar had been reported before. The area was searched, but no trace was found. The Walker family never camped again after that weekend. Months later, Anne says she still hears the same sound at night. "We weren't alone," she says. "There was someone in the woods or something, and it wasn't asking for help. It was calling us." Story 3. The Man in the Tree. Nathan was an experienced hiker who went camping alone in the Uinta Mountains in Utah. He had been camping alone for many years. Being away from the crowds was like therapy for him. This last hike in August 2022 started as he had planned. When he reached the spot he had marked on his map, he pitched his tent by a stream among large pine trees. The silence was peaceful, nature mesmerizing, or so he thought. During the day, the forest was quiet. Nathan read a book, built a fire, made a few notes in his diary. After sunset, the air cooled rapidly and the forest became deeper and darker. Nathan retreated to his tent and tried to fall asleep. But in the middle of the night, a slight rustling sound opened his eyes. At first, he thought it was the wind, but the sound was constant, like the steady crushing of a leaf. He went outside and turned on his flashlight. There was nothing, just a starless sky and trees full of shadows. Just as he was about to go back to the tent, a feeling like he was being watched. Suddenly, his eyes fell on a large patch of grass just behind the tent. He shines his flashlight up, and there, about 4 meters up, was a crouching figure in the thick branches. At first, Nathan thought he was imagining it, but no, the thing was there. It looked human, but it didn't look like a normal person. Its eyes were glowing. It wasn't moving, just looking at him. Faint growls from its body cut through the night. Nathan lowered his flashlight and stepped backwards into the tent. As soon as he was inside, he zipped up the tent. His heart was beating like crazy. He didn't know what to do. There was no sound coming from outside, but she felt his presence. He waited silently inside the tent until morning, without blinking an eye. When the sun rose, he went outside. The tree was still there, but the upper branches were broken, and there were scratches on the pine trunk that looked like they had been made by human fingernails. Nathan quickly packed his things and left. 2 days later, when he returned home, he unpacked his bag and opened his diary. At the bottom of the last page, a sentence that wasn't his own writing had been added. "You finally looked up." Nathan never camped alone again after that day. He still sees those eyes in his dreams. And so the darkness is over. Or is it only temporary? The 3 true camping stories you just heard carry not only the silence of nature, but also the restlessness of the unknown. Jake and Eric have never forgotten those footsteps that crept silently around their tent in the night. The Walker family still hears those mysterious screams in their dreams. And Nathan, those eyes that glowed in the treetops, could now be staring at him in any darkness. For many of us, camping is a way to connect with nature, to calm down and get away from the noise of the city. But for some, the forest is more than just trees and animals. For some, forests are the graves of forgotten stories. Others claim that there is something still guarding those graves, a darkness invisible to the eye, present in sound, approaching when alone. Now I want to ask you, which of these three stories gave you the biggest chills? The shadows of Jake and Eric lurking silently around the tent. The cries for help that the Walker family heard but never saw. Or the man in the tree that Nathan didn't notice until he looked up. The man in the tree. Write in the comments which story moved you the most. Maybe there are other viewers who have experienced something similar. Maybe you've felt that the rustling you thought was the wind on a camping night before was something else. If you like this kind of true horror stories, please don't forget to like the video. This little clip helps Midnight Whispers reach more people and helps us to bring more creepy stories to you. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell, because we're releasing new videos on a weekly basis and we want to take you into the darkness a little bit more each time. Midnight Whispers is not just a YouTube channel, it's a gathering place for voices whispering in the dark. Even when our stories are over, never forget that something in the silence might be looking at you. Remember, the real scares start when the lights go out. And sometimes, even a campfire is not enough to protect you. See you in the next video. Before you go to sleep, close the curtain for the last time. And if you hear a noise outside, please don't look. Listen. Because in the dark, someone is still whispering. Good night from Midnight Whispers.